Welcome back, listeners. I am very excited because joining me on the podcast all the way from the UK, I have Lia Louis with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited.
Now, you are on an absolute whirlwind of your new novel, The Key to My Heart. There's so much I want to dive into when it comes to that. But firstly, I want to take it all the way back and ask you the initial question of when did you first know that you were a writer?
Wow. I think it's one of those things that I've always known deep down, but I had to know it. I had to come to it and look it in the eye and go, this is always going to be with me, even if I turn my back on it, even if I try to tell myself it's just a hobby, or you can't be a writer, you didn't complete school. Because I had kind of like I haven't got an education background whatsoever. So it's always been a thing that's been so present in my life. I've always been a diary writer. I've always written letters. I remember having a really bad day at school, and the only thing I wanted to do when I got home was, I feel better if I just write this out. And it wouldn't always be what was happening at school. It would sometimes be a short story, it would be whatever, it would just come out, a poem. And I had this sort of moment when I was 21, and hundreds of just stories, and I never finished anything, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Like when you're trying to find your feet, I'd get all fired up, like, yeah, I'm going to write something. And then I'd get about 4 chapters in, and then I'd be like, oh, I can't do this. And I got to about 21, and I was in another job that I hated. And because I didn't finish school and I didn't go to college or university, I thought, what do I actually want to do? And I just knew as soon as I said it, and I said it out loud, which is one of those weird moments that I think if someone wrote it in a movie, they'd be like, that's really that's unrealistic. But it really did happen. I sat in my bedroom and I said, what do I really want to do? And it was just a voice in my head that said, a writer, that's the answer. And I just thought, I don't think I can do it though, because I thought writers were people that went to Oxford and knew long words and talked in a really beautiful, proper way, like I was going to say a politician, but I don't actually think that's a viable example, actually. But so I think I've always known, but I actually didn't think that I could. There was imposter syndrome raging, which never really goes away, I don't think. But as soon as I sort of made that decision, I thought, well, I know I'm going to throw everything out at this. And I actually Googled how to be an author, and I was like, oh wow, you don't need to have gone to Oxford. So yeah, there was that moment at age 21. But I think I've always sort of known deep down, I've always written. So
I love that story, and it's such a deep intuition that I hear from writers regularly. There's different little ways that it's popped up in childhood, and it also does seem like this unattainable thing until you really do set your mind to it and make it happen. So what happened from 21 to where you are now and launching The Key to My Heart? That's a long story, I'm sure.
Yeah, gosh, I'm 35 now, so long time. So I mean, I as I said, I actually Googled. That was one of the kind of productive things I did, which was I Googled, and I remember just reading, like, okay, well, you need an agent, and wow, okay, you actually need to finish the book. I thought you could just, as if agents were just sitting there waiting for people to sort of go, I'll write you a book. And then the agent goes, all right. So once I sort of knew that, I just wrote, and I wrote and I wrote. And then in between that, somewhere I had lots of kind of near misses where I would send things off, and agents would come back and say, you're a really good writer, but there's no plot here, or there's no hook, this book isn't about anything. But they'd say it in a very kind way. I was really fortunate to have some really lovely advice back from agents. And I wrote about 2-3 books, and I can't really tell you what they were about, but looking back, it was just me finding my voice, me finding what worked for me, kind of knowing where I sort of, the more I kind of heard back from agents, the more I read, the more I kind of looked at things like The Bookseller and watched agent interviews, watched publisher interviews. The more I kind of thought, okay, well, I need to sort of decide what sort of writer I want to be. If I was on the shelves in Waterstones, where would I want to fit? And so this was just a long process, but it is like, as you say, it's like a deep knowing and then you make the decision and you're like, I know that this is it almost feels like a mad crazy dream when I sort of say it to somebody out loud, but I know that I might get knocked back and I might be frightened and I might doubt myself, but I know that I'll keep getting back up because there's that thing in my belly that's just telling me I have to keep going. And then I had 3 children also in that big space of time, and twins, and my older child as well. And then I think it was 20, I always get mixed up with these dates. In 2017, I just thought I have to do it. Like, I have to finish this book. And I was really confident about it. I'd been to a course that was run by Bloomsbury Books, and it was just about how to get an agent. And I met some agents there and we talked loads, and everyone seemed quite interested in the hook of my idea for Somewhere Close to Happy, which was my first book. And it just spurred me on. I thought, well, I'm on the right track. If people aren't screwing their faces up going, God, that sounds absolutely mad, then I must be on the right track. And so I sent it out to 8 agents, and on the 31st of October, Halloween, I always remember where I was when I sent them off, like, oh my God, this is actually, I'm doing this and I'm doing it properly. This is like 10 years in the making. And I didn't hear anything and this is something I always talk about, because I think we all hear, writers that are wanting to be published, we all hear about these overnight success stories where it landed in my inbox, the agent says, and I just couldn't put it down, and within 24 hours I'd signed her. Like, we hear all of this and we go, oh my God, that's obviously how it works, that's how it happens. And it didn't happen that way for me. And it was positive. And usually people go, oh, it's been 8 weeks, I'm just gonna write that one off. And it was actually the 30th of December that I had my agent Juliet Mushins email and say, could I see the whole thing? And very shortly after that, in January, the first week of January, I had another agent. So that, I think, is such a story to tell, because it of course there's always going to be the ones where the 8 weeks really does mean you probably should write it off, but actually it a lot of the time just means I haven't got to it yet. And that's exactly what had happened. It had been a big book fair and everybody was sort of backlogged, and so I got 2 offers of representation very quickly after that kind of initial, can we see the rest of it? And then I met both of them, and in the end, they were both wonderful, which it was a really hard decision to make, but as soon as I met Juliet, I knew. And that sort of 4 books later, just editing my 5th. So it's been very quick, really, since 2018. So there we are.
That's incredible. And I also love when you talk about your journey of trying with agents and other things that you'd written before. You learn from every experience. It's not a failure. It's like, oh, okay, you pick up this and that, and you learn more about your writing when you're getting a little bit of feedback and where you're meant to sit that way. And it all, when you have that nudge and that intuition, it all works out. Anyway, so I absolutely love that story. Did you always know what you wanted to write, or had you played around in different genres? Or
I think I always knew it was. It falls under lots of umbrellas. It's one of those weird ones, sort of, a lot of people say women's fiction, but I always knew I sort of wanted to write about love, I suppose, and not in a kind of linear sense. I think a kind of complicated love and almost everyday life. I think everyday life for me is where the kind of beautiful little stories are, and everyday people. I'm so much more interested in perhaps what the man next door to me at a cafe table is texting on his phone, like, oh my God, he looks really serious, I wonder what that's about. I'm much more interested in that than I maybe perhaps am in someone who's got this big, I've been to, these people are amazing, of course, like people that have done incredible, like I've been up Everest and stuff. I think, I know, but I am also very interested in what that man is saying to his girlfriend at table number 3. Like, they're the kind of, and I think everyday people always surprise you. Like, you meet people at a barbecue and everybody has their own incredible, beautiful story to tell. And so I think I sort of rom-coms, I was almost writing rom-coms and didn't realize I was writing rom-coms, and then I met Juliet, who is just so smart, and she was like, you're a rom-com writer. Because actually, weirdly, I mean, before we started recording, you were talking about YA and stuff, and when I pitched Somewhere Close to Happy, I actually put it with YA crossover, because it has a flashbacks to teenage years. And I sat opposite Juliet. She was like, this is not YA crossover, Leah. I was like, is it not? She was like, no, it really isn't. She said, I almost didn't open it, because she said I almost was sort of like, nah. And then she opened it like, oh God, actually, this is a rom-com. And she's trying to, she put it in the wrong box. And she talks about that a lot, because I think people panic about, am I completely selling it right in the letter? And she always uses me as an example, because I got the genre wrong and it didn't matter, because that's such a small thing. If she wants to sell a book, she thinks she can sell a book, she will sell it in the way that she knows how. And that, I think we can view agents as kind of gremlins, like at the gate, that won't let you through. And I mean, I was petrified of them. I thought, oh no, they're these people that sit at these big desks with like in leather chairs, big stamps on them, like
Next. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, like fail. So yeah, I did always want to kind of write about that stuff, but I almost didn't know what it was. But like when it comes to things like horror and thriller, I think if someone was to give me a thriller to write, I would end up putting romance in it, and they'd just be like, this is not what we ordered. So yes is the short answer.
Yeah, and you're so right with the whole genre thing, because you're like, yes, it's like, is it rom-com, is it women's fiction? Certain things can fit into so many different genres. I guess it's just where it's marketed and where it fits best. So I'm guessing you draw a lot of your inspiration from daily life. Is that how you come up with your ideas? Can you sit at the cafe, and how do most of your ideas formed?
Very, very similarly. Usually it's a what if. So, taking that kind of cafe example, like I'm always thinking, what if he's, texting someone else, or you think he's texting this person, but actually he's texting this person, and oh, a phone's an interesting thing, and everybody's got a phone, and I bet we don't know what's on there. Like, it's just, my head is always looking for those. I think actually I'm always trying to make boring things a little bit more interesting. And my boyfriend, whose brain just does not work like that, he's very sort of like A to B, he's very sciencey, and we'll be sitting at a restaurant and I'll be saying, clock that man over there, and he has not seen a thing. He's like, what? And he says, your brain it must never sleep, you're just but I'm always on the lookout. And I think you can even tell, even sometimes watching someone's mannerisms, meeting a new person, just looking at how they carry themselves, the words they use, that almost gives you the indication of the sort of person that they are. And sometimes that is enough to unravel something. And so for me, it's the what ifs of daily life. And what if you met someone here, or what if you met this person and actually they turned out to be this sort of person, or a regular thing, like in The Key to My Heart, there is a train station piano which we walk by all the time, and so I think some people really don't like them, like, oh god, I just want to get to work and someone's forcing me to listen to them sing along to piano. But I think they're really beautiful, but kind of I've never really thought about them any more than, oh, they're so cool, I wish I could play piano. But putting that kind of question of what if someone plays there and someone starts leaving the music, which is what The Key to My Heart is about. So it is all my brain is kind of always attracted to the everyday and asking sort of what if questions about those things.
And though it's pardon me, it's those stories that they are heart tugging, because that is the life that we are living every single day. And that is the beauty of it, because we are full of those what if moments, and it's those emotions and bringing out those real personalities in people that really draw readers in. So yeah, your books is absolutely wonderful. For current listeners, can you give us a little bit of a synopsis of The Key to My Heart, and maybe the little idea that sparked this particular, was it the piano?
So first of all, and I was saying this before we were recorded, I've been editing another book, and I had this complete like, I think it's actually nerves when you know that you've got to talk about something and you're like, it's like if you cook something every day and then someone says, I'm going to watch how you cook that. You're like, oh, I suddenly don't know how to do it. It's that. So forgive me.
No, you're fine.
My head is in another book at the moment. I get names wrong, that's why, but no, I should be fine. But yeah, so The Key to My Heart is about a woman called Natalie who has lost her husband 2 years ago. So she is sort of newly widowed, and she was a musician. She had it all going for her. She had a perfect life. She had a perfect husband, Russ, and a cottage that they'd bought that they were going to renovate. And she was never really into it, but she wanted it because he did. And suddenly one day he's knocked off his bike and he dies. And she spends some time with him in hospital before he dies, when he's in recovery and rehab. And there's a piano in the hospital, and so she plays because he loves her playing and she really thinks it's going to help him recover. And then he passes away, and she sort of loses this the zing that she had for life, but also all the things that she normally loved, which was performing and playing with her friend who they used to songwrite together. So the book begins with her in kind of a rut, but the only place she does play is at the train station piano at St Pancras Station in London, because nobody cares and nobody really looks at her. Everybody's really got somewhere else to be, and there's no pressure. No one is expecting her to write a new song or perform or progress in her career or start teaching. She's just, leave me alone, I'm just playing here, it means nothing. And she thinks nobody's listening. She just goes there as a kind of, she hasn't really got a lot else to do. She's missing her husband. And one day she lifts the stool of the kind of donated stall at the piano, and there's a piece of music that only her and her husband would know means something to her. And she sort of at first is kind of like, oh, probably reading into it, but then another piece, and then another piece, and then another piece, and she starts to, it fires her up. She's trying to find out who it is. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say, because I feel like if I say any more it will give it away. So yeah, and as for where the idea came from, I've always wanted to write about those pianos. I'm not sure why. I find them extremely romantic. I find music and watching someone play an instrument, I think, is a really beautiful thing. And piano especially is one of those things that, I mean, I can play a bit of guitar, but I tried with piano and I just couldn't get it. And so it's one of those things that I kind of wish I could do. And I remember actually I don't know what train station it was, but I was meeting my friend, because I'm not far from London, so I go in quite a lot. And I walked past it and I said to him, I'm going to write about a train station piano one day. And he was like, oh, I think that's such a cool emblem. And that, I remember that conversation, but that was years ago. And so then when it came to, sometimes ideas will come fully formed. I find as a writer, you've got the question, you've got the conflict instantly, but sometimes an emblem for me will come along, like like for Dear Emmy Blue, my second book, the emblem of someone, a balloon release of somebody finding someone else's balloon was with me for such a long time. But I just thought, such a cool emblem, but also it's not a whole book. It's a meet cute perhaps, but also that's not enough. I need it to link together somehow. And then eventually that came to me, but I tried to force it at the time, and it just wouldn't. And weirdly, my agent said, we need this idea by Monday to pitch, and magically I could come up with it. But it's amazing. It was almost like my brain, it was like, we've got nothing to lose now, we have to do it. But for years I tried, and it was almost like someone gave me a deadline and my brain was like, oh shit, we need to do something about this. But yeah, so for me that piano emblem was there for quite a while, but I just kind of, I didn't know what to do with it. And then, which is always a story with me really, I have definitely said that before, didn't know what to do with it. And suddenly, I don't remember when this happened, but someone leaving her pieces of music came, and I thought, oh yeah, I really like that, see if it sticks. And it did. And so yes, that is sort of roughly how I got there really.
I love that. And with someone who's constantly thinking about these what if scenarios and just seeing life in its fullest, how do you choose what ideas you take on and what ones that you're just like, no, you need to sit that to the side for a little bit?
No, I totally I totally get what you're asking, because that is such a thing, isn't it? It's I think when, as you say, when your brain is that type of brain, I think you are a sort of, I never sort of think that writers are a sort of breed, but we really are. I alienate my friends sometimes when I'm really, I say I'm just constantly thinking about it, and they're like, oh my God, don't you ever just sit and watch TV? And I do. And I go, right, I'm going to watch Netflix. And then I sit and watch Netflix and I'm like, that is such an interesting character. And it's like, you can't fight it. I've had people say to me, you know, you should really try and take some time off. And I think I can take time away from the laptop, but I can't, it's like telling somebody that, I don't know, it's like telling someone that, I'm trying to think of an example, someone that loves music, it's like telling them, or someone that plays an instrument, they're always going to listen to the radio or to a record differently to someone like me who kind of, I mean, I love music, but I don't write it. And I think it's so inbuilt. And so there are a lot of cool ideas that, and I think those sometimes do come up in other books, but in a maybe smaller way. So you might have a little idea, and then 5 years ago you had to go, it's not really enough. And then 5 years later you need a B plot or, you know, a subplot for someone, and you think, oh my God, that would be perfect. And so I never kind of shelve things. I sometimes think I do, and then they come back in a different kind of form. So yeah, I think if it doesn't leave me alone, that usually is, I have to listen to it. I think it gives you a feeling. I mean, the latest book idea, I just, it came so quickly, I knew instantly, and then I thought, okay. But then there are others where I'm sort of on the fence, and then something else comes along that either tips me into, oh yeah, I'm going to shelve that, or oh my God, I've just fixed this whole idea and made it so much better. So yeah, I would say it's instinct, and it's that feeling in your belly of, I can't stop thinking about it. Oh my God, I've got butterflies. It's that makes me go, I can't not do this book idea. So yeah. And of course, when you then have an agent, I would always advise people always write what you love, because you're going to spend so much time with it. If you're writing something that you just think agents want or think the world wants, but then you will, it's going to be quite exhausting to be sitting at a desk every day with something you're sort of on the fence about. But I think you have to love what you write, and also at the same time you have to know that what you're writing is something that you could put on the shelf. It's not like so out of kind of every box going that no one's probably ever going to find it. You have to kind of walk this middle ground. And of course you then, when you've got an agent, they will say, this will be quite hard to sell, and those things do. And sometimes you feel so strongly, like, I don't care, I just need to write it. And then in that case, go for it. But those things do start to inform decision making, I think, when you've got someone that knows the market and knows what's selling here and knows what TV companies want. And so yeah, there's a lot, it gets more complicated, I think, when you're sort of through the looking glass, if you like, of publishing. But I just think it's the feeling in your belly, and just, that is all I would ever say. You have to love and be excited before you sit down.
Absolutely. And it's that deep intuition and you do have to find a middle ground with the market too. I absolutely agree with that. But I just want to come back to how you explained how a writer's brain works, because I find this really interesting, particularly if anyone who is, I only had this literally this week where I was at dinner with people and they were questioning me like, wow, like, how do you come up with that? And how do you think like that? And you think to yourself, oh, wow, I forget that other people don't.
I know. I actually said to my friend the other day, I was talking to my friend, she's a writer as well. She writes crime, and we were talking, and I said to her, I actually think if someone said, I mean, I did use a very extreme example, like, you have to stop writing or you're going to die, I'd say, okay, but my brain, despite this, would still be making story ideas every single day or every single month, and I'd be having to say to it, I'm sorry, I can't write it down, but I can't. So I might be able to stop writing, I might be able to step away from the actual physical act, but my brain, you're absolutely right, it's such a writer's brain thing, it's always on. And it's got a part of it that never sleeps either. You're always on the lookout for something.
Yeah, it's like this daydreamer's like curiosity. So I feel like, yeah, if anyone has that and they're questioning whether they should or shouldn't jump on the writing train, then you know, it's made, give it a go. It's made for you. Absolutely. You're a storyteller.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what other words of advice would you give an up and coming writer? You've given so much incredible advice in this interview, but were there anything particularly that you really learned and took on that helped you in your journey that you would like to pass on as well?
Yeah, I think we are all the same. Like, I would view kind of, you know, people, before I was published, before I had an agent, I would view these people as having something that I didn't have, and not physically like with the agent, more kind of, it would really buy into the imposter syndrome part of me, and that is still such a massive part of me, and I'm learning to sort of make friends with it now, but it is with me still. And I think I had this sort of idea that, well, I've got this imposter syndrome, I don't feel good enough, I don't feel like, I think, you know, I'm not the same as all these amazing writers that are out there with books on the shelves and stuff, but I'm sure once I've got an agent, if that does happen, I'll feel differently. And the truth is, the doubt never ever goes. You still feel like any minute now, you know, a reviewer is going to turn around and say, oh my God, why are you writing a book? Who told you could do this? You get them off of Amazon now. Or you think your agent's going to call you and say, I've just realized after 3 books that you're actually fake. And you're like, you're waiting all the time for that. And I think you think that that's not going to happen. And once you've got an agent, oh, I'll know that I can write then, and so I'll just write without fear, it'll be great. But actually, that is always going to be with you. So if you're waiting for the time to start writing where you'll feel like, no, this is definitely the time, for me, that never comes. It never does. It didn't come back then. It doesn't happen now. Even when I've had a publisher say, we will buy your book, please write it, I will then sit down to write this book and go, well, I can't do it. There's just no way I can live up to what they want. And so what I would always say is, don't wait, just keep going, and just look at that doubt in the eye, go, I know you're going to be here with me probably forever. So we might as well make friends. But I mean, Elizabeth Gilbert has this, I don't know if anyone has read this, but I recommend this to every writer, Big Magic, because you're nodding, so I'm assuming that you know. It's like, it changed my life. And every single time I have doubt, which literally cripples me, and I can't, you know, sometimes a whole day will go by and I've written 2 words and I think, Leah, like, this is your job now, you need to. And I'm so crippled with fear, I go back to that book and I think, okay, this is actually just a natural reaction, this is my brain trying to keep me safe and stop me getting my feelings hurt. And actually, I'm a big girl, I can cope with it. So Mr. Doubt, you can sit there because I know you're not going anywhere. And she talks about this, how I think she says something like, fear, you can sit in the car, but you can't tell me where to go, you can't read the map, you can't touch the stereo. I'm taking this in this car, I'm in charge, but you can sit in the back seat. And that really, really stuck with me, because I thought, it's true, it's been with me. It was with me at 21, it was with me before that, it was the voice telling me I couldn't do this, and it's with me at 35, and it's saying, thing is, you've done 4 books, that's fluke, you can't do it, and you can't do 6. And I have to just go, I'm sorry, I know I want to believe you, but actually I'm going to choose not to. And so I would say to everybody, if you're waiting for the moment that you feel like a writer, a proper writer, whatever that is, just don't, because we all feel it. We're all writers, I think, by default, are quite anxious, kind of quiet, you know, introspective people, where we're always kind of, you know, you go to a writer's event and everyone, you know, I'm the first person to go, oh my God, I'm a nervous wreck, and everybody goes, oh my God, me too. And I think, oh, we are all the same. And, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, of course. And so that is my first bit of advice, is that don't wait to feel like a proper writer, because if you're like me, you might always struggle with that, and the way forward is through. And then I think the other thing I would say is to finish your book, even if you know it's awful. There is something about getting to the end, having a breather from it, maybe for a month, if you can kind of, you know, if you're not in some sort of contract, or, you know, if you're trying to get published, you have that kind of, take that month, because you'll then send it to your Kindle, or you'll print it out, or whatever it is that works for you, and you'll read it, and it will be better than you think it is. But there will also be parts where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that. But that's fine, because they that can be taken out. But once you've got, it's like, in order to make a house, to build a house, you need all the materials, and you might look at the bricks, and you might look at the wood, and look at the cement, and think, oh my God, this is never going to be a house. But once it's in front of you, you know, if you keep going, it will resemble a house at some point. But when you're standing among rubble and bricks, you can't almost see it. So that's the time that you want to walk away, but get to the end. And even if your house looks like it's going to fall down, it doesn't matter, because then you can put in, you know, all the kind of, you can make it stronger, you can make it straighter, you can fix this, you can fix that. So I used to give up all the time at the third mark. And then occasionally at the halfway mark, I would get past the third, and then I'd get to halfway and think, oh my God, this is a mental book. This is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And then I give up. But I've actually learned that is really normal. And I get to that point every time now. And I just know, I've come to know that this is part of the process. And you might have a brainwave at halfway that makes you want to go back and change all the first half, because you now know what it's about. But I still say, even if you just get it out, get the plot out, and then you know what you're dealing with. And that, for me, as soon as I knew I have to finish this, and I'm not going to look back, I'm just going to keep going until I get to the end, that really helped me, because then you've got everything you need in front of you, even if you need to fix it up or take bits away, etc.
Oh my God, Leah, that is just amazing. And that is just so much truth and so much great advice. And I can't agree with you more. I love Big Magic and Elizabeth Gilbert. Any writer I speak to, that is just the Bible. Like, honestly, she has created something out of this world with that book. And I absolutely love that quote on fear. I think, you know, where we're feeling it the most, it's probably where, if, like, obviously, unless it's like something, you know, the fear that's stopping you from what you want to do the most, like passion wise. I think that we almost, you do need to listen to that, and you're like, hang on, that's, I'm feeling this much because this is how much I want it, and this is how much I need to push through. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, go.
Oh no, I just said I totally agree. Agree.
Thank you so much for joining us, Leah. I just have had the most amazing chat, and I cannot wait to share this with all the listeners. Can you quickly let us know where everyone can find The Key to My Heart and where to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram under Lia Louis author. I'm on Twitter on L is for Leah. And yeah, my book, The Key to My Heart, is out in paperback and ebook, and you can get it in all good bookshops and on Amazon. So yeah, there we are.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to see what this next one you're working on is as well.
Oh yeah, me too, actually.
Thank you so much for that, Leah.
Thank you.